All right. So today I'm sharing some ideas on mix bus processing. Of course, mix bus being the um, channel that all your tracks are routed to. So everything I'm adding to this mix, I'm adding to the entire mix. And this is some ideas of maybe things you could try if you're learning. This is some of the stuff I like to do. Today we have Piano Man, covered by the greatest cover band in the world, Heine Street Country Club.
Sing us a song, you're the piano man. Sing us a song tonight. Well, we're all...
So right now I have nothing at all on the master bus. That's right here. And that's an EQ and bypass. We'll just use that for the spectral analyzer for now if you want to take a look at that. So that's the way the mix sounds with nothing on it at all. And if you look at my fader here is at 0 on the master here. And this is the level coming in, just so you see, where my mix is sitting, going into the master bus level-wise. So I have plenty of headroom. I don't have to go back and, add a trim or do some, cockamamie way of getting the level right, because everything is right in the mix. Again, you see, I like to keep my faders at 0 and kind of move them off of that when I automate, but that's another video. So we have plenty of headroom on everything. Okay, let's just make sure we got that going. So now we have some options now we could add. First thing I would do before I put anything on the mix bus, of course this is my mix, but is, make sure the mix is right and don't try to fix things in the mix bus. If you're mixing your own stuff and then adding things to the mix bus, mastering, I would not try to be fixing things. Now, that being said, there's some benefits to, a high-end shelf or this or that, things that you may not do in the mix because you're saving for the master bus, so to speak, or you're thinking ahead that there's going to be this or that processing. But fixing a problem, saying, well, the mix doesn't have enough low end or this or that, and trying to fix that on the master, we're not doing that here. And if you're mastering your own stuff, you shouldn't be doing that. So again, here's the way I like my mix sounding. This is the finished mix. This is the way I liked it before, with nothing on the master bus. Really important to get this right first.
Now John at the bar is a friend of mine.
To me, that's my mix, and
as a smile ran away from his face,
everything's where it's supposed to be.
Well, I'm sure that I could be a movie star.
All right. Now, it's a very dynamic song, right? The verses are quiet, the choruses get loud. You'll have to keep an eye on what's going on with that, with compression and everything. So here's some ideas. Let's go through it. First thing I'm going to put on is, I'll use plugins that a lot of people have. I can stick to the wave stuff, which I do use. I'll put on HComp that has a built-in mix knob. Okay, first thing I'm doing is parallel compression. First in the chain. The order of the chain matters with this stuff. The reason why I'm doing this first, and let's do that and we'll talk about it.
If I could get out of this place. La, 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 da, da, da.
So right now there's some heavy compression on here, right? 6 dB and more. Now, of course, I would never just slam a mix like that. But I'm talking about parallel. Now here's a mix knob where I'm slamming this thing and I can bring it down to, let's say, 20%. So you see, looks like about 1 to 2 dB of compression at the most. Now we're in mix bus territory, right?
Now Paul is a real estate
and now here's bypass.
Who never had time for a wife. And
turn
he's
it on.
Talking with David, who's still in the Navy.
And you may say, well, I don't even hear a difference. There's a difference. And all these things will build up. Now, the reason why I did this first, why would you parallel compress first? Well, as an option, one of the reasons is the compressors or whatever I'll be feeding after this in the chain is going to get a slightly more even signal as far as dynamics. It's not going to, the levels won't be as jumpy. We'll put it like that. So let's say next, we're going to put on, we could put an EQ, we could put, right, let's do some simple EQ, stuff that I like to do on the master. I will use my stock EQ, nothing fancy. So I already know as I mix this, I want to add a bit of high-end shelf. As I mix this, I did have that in mind, so it's not a corrective thing. Now, you really use something for color here. Here I'm just using a stock EQ, but whatever you have for color, a Moog EQ, you know, mastering EQs.
He says, Daddy, I believe this is killing me. As a smile ran away from his face. Well, I'm sure that I could.
Now, I do like to do that. If you notice, that is about 2 dB at this point. It's doing very little. Again, these things will add up, and I did plan to do. Now, we should have done this maybe first. What does this mix look like? Let me bypass that for a second. So we haven't done any EQ. Let's just use this to look at the analyzer. What does the mix look like? Again, I did the mix, so I already know, and I know there's nothing to fix, but let's look at it. Right now, it just has a little bit of parallel compression, not much.
If I could get out of this place.
See my kick drum. You see there's no extra rumble. Here's your bass fundamentals popping out, your kick drum sitting where it's supposed to be. Now if I look across the mid-range, is anything popping out? Is anything out of control in here? Is it inconsistent through this whole mid-range area? No, it's not. It's nice and consistent. Now the one thing I am noticing is there is some real drop-off on the high end. Again, we probably should have done this first, but if we go above, let's say here, what's this, 11K, right? Go above that, there's a quick, severe drop-off in high end. And that can just happen on a mix. Doesn't mean the mix is wrong. You can make up for that stuff in the mix, or you can do it here. I do kind of both. Again, this is what I fed to the master. I like the way it was going to work out. So you see the big kind of
It's 9 o'clock.
drop off. Another thing is the vocal mics just have nothing up there. Some of these live mics that we used, they have a roll off up there. So you may not have such an extreme situation like that. And we can do something like that. I'm not going to do it on this EQ. Let's do it here.
On a Saturday, the regular crowd shuffles in. There's an old man sitting next to me.
And I'm just going to add another high shelf. And I see that downward slope is a bit more even. Now, generally, and you look at some great mixes that you like, there is going to be a drop off here. Now, we're not trying to get it all up, towards where the mid-range is. That would be very bright. But a gradual drop off instead of that extreme drop. Right, and you see the hi-hat is popping up in some decent territory. It's not very low and far away from the rest of the levels. Could maybe even use a bit more, right?
I'm not really sure how it goes, but it's sad and it's sweet, and I knew it complete when I
so we brought that up a bit. Not
clothes.
such an extreme drop-off. The details of this stuff, you can A/B, you can use your ears. But that's a nice visual guide to what we're working with. So let's see what we can do next. Here's what we started with, unmastered. Oh, we're not quite mastering, but unprocessed. And that's what we ended. All right, next. Now that we have the EQ in place, again, we liked our low end, didn't we? There's a bit of a drop off here, but that's 40 hertz and down. That's where you're kind of supposed to drop off. I can give it a little something in this area. Gotta watch the kick though. But I would give it a hair more down there. Again, also use your ears, do some A-Bing. Let's give it a hair more at 40. Watch out for that kick drum. All right, we did 2.5 dB. Let's do a little something that we can hear. Let's do 3 dB. Things don't always come across YouTube so well. So I gave it a bit of energy down here. That's no problem. We see the kick drum and the bass popping up just above the rest of the levels. No problem. Just above. That's what we want. Now the next thing I can put on, let's do a bus compressor. I mean, I could just do the, yeah. I mean, everybody has this plugin or some version of it, right? So let's do it. Maybe what would be interesting here is the settings that I like. Now, a lot of people use, this is the standard, quote unquote. You got ratio at 4, auto release, attack at 30. This is what I just see everybody doing. And I think everybody's doing it because everybody else is doing it. I don't know. But this is the setting that people tend to use. Let's hear it.
He says, son, can you play me a memory? I'm not really sure how it goes.
Now, I know with the auto release, you have this slow release and then the fast release, like above 3 dB. It's a 2-stage thing.
It goes, but it's sad and it's sweet, and I knew it
So
complete.
if you're using auto release, you know, a lot of these SSL emulations, everybody has them, right? The auto release is 2-stage. You see that needle takes forever. So as far as like kissing the needle, your release is too slow here, right? Anyway, let's get out of there. So quick release. I don't use auto. So I like the quick release. This thing isn't, you know, it's not adding distortion. It's not, you know, you got to be careful with quick releases. They could add distortion. That's not pleasing. But this is a bus compressor and it's pretty well made. It's not doing any issues there.
When I wore a younger man's clothes.
So let's do 1 to 2 dB. And on the attack, I like 10. Most of the time I'm on 10. And on ratio, I'm on 2. I'm a little more light-handed. Now this particular compressor doesn't have a side chain, you know, to roll off the impact of the low end on the needle. So I'm just gonna jump a bit on the kick drum for now here. Now that's interesting. Now you see how much that's jumping on the kick drum?
Sing us a song, you're the piano man. Sing us a song.
That's a red flag. Unless you're doing very bass heavy music. That's a red flag. That's actually good information. I'm getting rid of that bump at the low end.
Us a song tonight. Well, we're all
Now a
in
little more
the
similarity
mood.
between the kick and the snare. Okay. So that can give you some feedback, right? If the snare is making that needle jump over the rest of the mix, then maybe either your snare is too loud or you can give it some saturation to give it less level but more perceived loudness. So that can give you some clue as to what's going on. You could also have maybe your verse is not moving the needle, and then when the chorus comes in and all these extra elements come in, you're reducing by 3 or 4 dB all of a sudden. Then the jump in volume within the mix is too big. So you actually get some good feedback off of that needle. It's supposed to behave, you know, where it's kind of just gluing things, right? Now, I can do some saturation. And the reason why I would do saturation this late in the process is because as you're feeding your saturation, you know, dynamic levels, it reacts differently. It's very extreme, right? So we're talking about distortion, saturation. The more level you give it, the more saturation you're going to get. So after our 2 compressors, we're giving it a more even level. So it's not saturating the peaks and not affecting everything else as extreme as it would. What do we want to use, right? That makes sense. So it's like when you play lightly on a guitar as opposed to hitting the string hard, you get different amounts of distortion. So we're feeding into the saturation something a little more level, consistent. What do we want to use? I don't know. I just got all this plugin alliance stuff. If it doesn't take me too long to find, I think I need to organize this a little better. Saturator? That's not what I'm looking for, though. What is that thing called? Oh my God, this list is so long. And we could put a Maggie Q. We could push some Shadow Hills. Now I'm looking for, it's up here, I think. Black box, yes. All right, so we got some saturation. I'm not going to do anything crazy. It's piano.
For a melody, and you got us feeling alright.
Now this thing is, so simple. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, talking about what I'm doing. I'm just obviously pushing the saturation a bit evenly throughout. I haven't had this plugin that long, so I'm getting used to it. This one's touchy.
Now John at the bar is a friend.
Now, if we're saturating the mix, I want to hear the loudest part of the mix, so I really see, when it hits it hard, what's going to happen.
Time for a while. The businessman slow, but it's better than drinking.
Here we go. Yeah.
Sing us a song, you're the piano man. Sing us a song tonight. Well, we're all in the mood for a melody, and you got us feeling alright.
It's kind of nice. It's on. Off.
It's a pretty good crowd for a Saturday, and the manager gives me a smile, 'cause he knows that it's me.
I like that. I know people love this plugin. I'm just starting to use it. Okay. So now we're not getting into mastering and, LUFs and RMS levels and peak levels and the, the limiter settings and all that. That's another topic. But so let's see what we have here before and after. Before.
Oh, you're the piano man. Sing us a song tonight.
After.
Well, we're all in the mood for a melody, and you got us feeling alright.
Now, one thing I'd like to show, I'm going to put a limiter on. Let me lower the volume so it doesn't hit you all loud. But I'm going to put a limiter on for now to show you a final thing here. Now I'm just going to lightly hit the limiter, right? I'm not doing anything crazy. I never do at this point.
Shuffles in.
Let's get, a dB or two of reduction every now and then. Let's be responsible here.
There's an old man sitting next to me, making love to his tonic and gin.
Okay, let's hear the chorus.
La 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 da da da.
All right, that's fine. So that's generally where the level is going to be in the end if we're talking about a light-handed, limiter at the end of the chain in the mastering phase. Now, what I'm going to point out is I don't have my meters up, but if you look at your LUFS level, which could be in the range of maybe -10, give or take, -8. And if you look at your dynamic range level, it could be around 10. But that's for another video. We can get into that. But the point is here, we're looking at the peaks are obviously going to be up here because we put a limiter on it. But let's see how far it drops down in between peaks is what I'm going to show.
La la da da da.
Let me get the level on the video down so it doesn't blow your head off when I make this loud. So let's put this. Okay.
Sing us a song, you're the piano man. Sing us a song tonight. Well, we're all in the.
Okay, so if we look at our master bus meter here.
All in the mood for a melody, and you got us feeling alright.
You can see that how much it's bouncing off the top. This is what I'm showing. So the limiter is obviously allowing it to go right to the top before it distorts. But if you notice the range as these meters are bouncing, and again, another video can get into more detail, but there aren't extreme drops, right? It's how big is this dynamic range is what we're talking about. And typically I know that if we're staying above 0 most of the time, because here we're on this particular meter, we're at +6, so about 6 dB of range here. If we're staying above 0 most of the time, and we know we're peaking up here because of the limiter now, then I know that my mix is in a range that's going to be a good volume compared to other songs. So,
and he's quick with a joke.
you see, we're not really dropping below 0.
With a joke, gotta light up your smoke. But there's some place that he'd rather.
And again, at the same time, we're not also seeing our meters just pinned here up at the top, right? So that's the dynamic range of the mix. And, you know, looking at mixes that you like and getting your meters right to see what that dynamic range looks like is important. And adjusting the mix and the compression accordingly so that that looks right. So you want it to breathe, you don't want it pinned at 0, and you don't want any huge variations from highs to low. And that will ensure that as you put your limiter on, you're getting something that's in the standard realm of volume. All right, so I think that was something cool to show. Now, there's other ways to go about it. There's other things I do on the mix bus. There's all kinds of stuff. But this was a good example of some basics and, you know, go light on it. And if it's not happening, go back to the mix and fix it, right? If not, if you're mastering somebody else's stuff, that's another story. We could actually get into that later. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed the video. Subscribe. I'm just getting this channel going and getting everything going. And, you know, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notifications. I'll be doing this more regularly. Let me know if there's anything you want to see. Let me know if it's helpful. I'll be planning out videos and maybe having them put together a little better. So a lot of things coming. Make sure you're subbed. See you soon.